Hello, good morning. Waiting for some of you to get on because I don't see anybody quite yet. I know it's early. So today we are going to be reading the chapter How. We ended where Gilly went to, we ended where Gilly went to try to get the bus ticket to go see Courtney. And we know the clerk at the bus station, he went ahead and he called the security, right? So Trotter came and picked Gilly up. Um, and remember, William Ernest really was like pleading for Gilly to stay. So we are on the chapter How. There was a fight between Trotter and Miss Ellis. Gilly heard the sounds of battle in the living room when she came in from school the next afternoon. And remember, Miss Ellis is the lady who works for the foster company who gets Gilly into these homes. Never, never, never. Trotter was bellowing like an old cow deprived of its calf. Gilly stopped still in the hallway, closing the door without a sound. Mrs. Trotter, nobody at the agency looks as an indication of failure on your part. You think I care what the agency thinks? You're one of our most capable foster parents. You've been with us for more than 20 years. This won't affect your record with us. You're too valuable. I don't give a spit about no record. You ain't taking Gilly. We're trying to think of you. No, you ain't. If you was thinking of me, you'd never come to me with such a fool notion. This is a troubled child. She needs special. No, I ain't giving her up. Never, ever. If you won't think of yourself, at least think of William Ernest. He's come too far in the last year to let, I mean, I've seen myself how much she upsets him. It was William Ernest that got her to come home last night. Trotter's voice was square and stubborn. Because he saw how upset you were. That doesn't mean she can't damage him. William Ernest has lived with me for over 2 years. He's going to make it. I know he is. Sometimes, Miss Ellis, you got to walk on your heel and favor your toe, even if it makes your heel a little sore. I don't understand what you're getting at. Somebody's got to favor Gilly for a little while. She's long overdue. That's exactly it, Miss Trotter. I'm quite aware of Gilly's needs. I've been her caseworker for nearly 5 years. And whether you believe it or not, I really care about her. But I don't think it's her needs we're talking about right now, is it? What do you mean? It's your needs, said very quietly. A silence. And then, yes, Lord knows I need her. A funny broken sound, like a sob, came from Trotter. I like to die when I found her gone. You can't do that, Miss Trotter. You can't let them tear you into pieces. Don't try to tell a mother how to feel. You're a foster mother, Miss Trotter. Miss Ellis's voice was firm. You can't afford to forget that. Gilly's whole body was engulfed in great aching. She opened and slammed the front door, pretending to have just come in. This time they heard her. That you, Gilly, honey? She went to the doorway of the living room. Both women were on their feet, flushed as though they'd been running a race. Well, Gilly, Miss Ellis began, her voice glittering like a fake Christmas tree. Miss Ellis, Trotter broke in, was just saying how it's up to you. There was a flash of alarm from the social worker, which Trotter pretended not to see. You want to stay here with William Ernest and me? That's fine. You want her to find you someplace else? That's fine too. You got to be the one to decide. Her eyes shifted uneasily toward Miss Ellis. What about, Gilly asked, her mouth going dry as a stale soda cracker. What about my real mother? Miss Ellis's eyebrows jumped. I wrote her, Gilly, several months ago when we decided to move you from the Nevins. She never answered. She wrote me. and she wants me to come out there. Miss Ellis looked at Trotter. Yes, I know about the postcard, the caseworker said. Those damn cops reading people's mail and blabbing, passing around, snickering over it, probably. Gilly, if she really wanted you with her, she does want me. She said so. Then why hasn't she come to get you? A hard edge had come into Miss Ellis's voice, and her eyebrows were twitching madly. It's been over 8 years, Gilly. Even when she lived close by, she never came to see you. It's different now, wasn't it? She's gonna come. She really wants me, didn't she? Trotter came over to her and laid her arm heavily on Gilly's shoulder. If she'd knowed you, if she'd just knowed what a girl she has, she'd be here in a minute. Oh, Trotter, don't be a fool. If she knew what I was like, she'd never come. It takes someone stupid like you. Gilly removed herself gently from under the weighty embrace and addressed herself to Miss Ellis, eye to eyebrow. Till she comes for me, I guess I'll stay here. Trotter wiped her face with a big hand and snuffled. Well, I'm sure we'll be seeing you sometime soon, Miss Ellis. The social worker wasn't going to be swept out quiet. She set her feet apart as though fearing Trotter might try to remove her and said, Officer Ryan told me when he called you that you had well over $100 with you last night. Yeah? It came out sassy, but Miss Ellis just squinted her eyes and went on. It's hard to believe that that was all your money. So I call taking money stealing, Miss Hopkins. Yeah? Trotter patted Gilly's arm as to shush her. So do we, Miss Ellis. Surely you don't think it's the first time something like this has happened to me over the past 20 years. No, I know it's not. Then how about trusting me to handle it? Miss Ellis shook her head and smoothed her pantsuit down before she put on her coat. I'll be in close touch, she said. Trotter nearly shoved her out the front door. We're going to do just fine. Don't worry your pretty little head about us, you hear? I get paid to worry, Miss Trotter. Trotter smiled impatiently and closed the door quickly. When she turned back toward Gilly, her face was like a Mount Rushmore stone. She was very still. Gilly blinked in surprise at the sudden and absolute change. I don't take lightly to stealing, you know. Gilly nodded. No use pretending sassiness. I figure that money ain't all mine, right? No. Well, where'd you get it? I found it, said Gilly. Trotter came over with two hands, lifted Gilly's face to look into her own. Where'd you get it, Gilly? I found it behind some books next door. Trotter dropped her hands in disbelief. You stole from Mr. Randolph? It was just lying there behind the books. He probably didn't even. Gilly, you stole it. Don't put no fancy name on it. It was his, and you took it, right? I guess so. How much? For don't fool with me. How much? $44, Gilly said miserably. Well, you got to take it back. I can't. Trotter stood there, hand on hip, staring at her until Gilly continued. I gave $5 to Agnes Stokes. You did, huh? Gilly nodded. Well, I'll lend you $5 to pay Mr. Randolph back, and you can work it off. And we have that break again in the text. You can see that big break. Giving back Mr. Randolph's money was not as bad as it might have been. The old man apparently had no idea that there had been money behind his books. Either he'd forgotten or it had been put there by his wife, dead long before Trotter's Melvin. At any rate, when Gilly gave the $44 to him, Trotter looming behind her like a mighty army, he accepted her mumbled explanation without showing shock or curiosity, but with a strange little dignity. Thank you, he said, for once not doubling the phrase. He put the money in his pocket, he rubbed his hands together, and then he put out his hand to be led to supper. Gilly hesitated for a moment, waiting for the sermon that was bound forth, if not from him, surely from Trotter. But neither spoke. So she took Mr. Randolph's hand instead of his elbow, as she usually did, as a kind of thank you. Trotter had obviously never heard of either the minimum wage or the child labor laws. So she posted the following sign in her kitchen. So this is what Trotter posted in her kitchen. And you can see the author chose to use italics. And remember, we talked about how that's kind of the slanted text. And this is just like the author wrote it like this so that it almost looks like a chart, like she would post in her kitchen. Washing dishes and cleaning kitchen, 10 cents. Vacuuming downstairs, 10 cents. Cleaning both bathrooms, including floors, 10 cents. Dusting, 10 cents. Helping William Ernest with schoolwork for 1 hour, 25 cents. Gilly began to spend a lot of time with W.E. She discovered several things. One, that the boy was not as dumb as he looked. If you held back and didn't press him, he could often figure out things for himself. But when you crowded him, he would choke right up. And if you laughed at him, he'd throw his hands up as to protect his head from a blow. It finally occurred to Gilly that he really thought she was going to smack him every time he made a mistake. Which was why, of course, Trotter tiptoed around the boy as though he would shatter at the least commotion, and why she was death on anyone she caught fooling around with him. So remember, W.E. is in a foster home right now with Miss Trotter, and he's kind of always scared that someone's going to hit him. So whenever he does something wrong, he kind of covers his head, okay? So you can probably make an inference and figure out what probably happened to William Ernest before he got to Trotter's house. If you can comment, I know some of you have struggled with that, and that's okay. But if you can comment, go ahead and make an inference right now as to what you think might have happened to W.E. in the past that made him feel so scared that somebody would put their hands on him if he did something wrong. I'll just give it a minute. I know that there's 70 watching, but you may not be able to comment, and that's okay. All right, so my inference is that maybe he was abused before he got to Trotter's house. And remember, when you make an inference, you use what you already know, your background knowledge, and what you've read. But it wasn't going to work. W.E. wasn't a fluted antique cup in Miss Nevin's china cupboard. He was a kid, a foster kid. And if he didn't toughen up, what would happen to him when there was no Trotter to look after him? So Gilly asked him, "What do you do when somebody socks you?" His squinty little eyes went wild behind the glasses. "I'm not going to hit you. I'm just wondering, what would you do?" He stuck his right index finger into his mouth and began to tug at the nail. She took out the finger and studied his stubby, nailed hand for a minute. "Nothing wrong with this, I can see. Ever think about smacking him back?" He shook his head, wide-eyed. "You're going to go through life letting people pick on you?" He hung his head. The finger went back in. "Look, William Ernest." She bent over close to his ear and whispered hoarsely into it. "I'm going to teach you how to fight. No charge or anything. Then when some big punk comes up to you and tries to start something, you can just let him have it." His finger dropped from his mouth as he stared at her, unbelieving. "You hear how I fought 6 boys in one day, all by myself?" He nodded. Before I get through with you, you're going to be doing the same thing. Pow, 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 pow." She landed 6 imaginary punches, sending 6 imaginary bullies flying. "Pow," he echoed softly, tentatively doubling up his fists and giving a swing. "First thing, when somebody yells at you, don't throw your hands up," she imitated him, "and act like you think they're going to kill you." "How?" He swung his little fist in kind of a question mark. "No, first thing. See, they may not even be meaning to hit you. First thing, you got to take a deep breath. She filled her diaphragm and waited while he tried to imitate her, his ribs poking through his shirt. Then you yelled like this, "Get the hell out of my way." Before the sentence was out, Trotter was filling the doorway with the wrath of God Almighty. Do you think Trotter's going to like this? Okay, Gilly said. Leave out the hell part. But the main thing, what are you kids doing? I thought I was paying you to help William Ernest with his. Nah, this is on my own time. No charge. Trotter looked anxiously at W.E. He was standing on his tiptoes, fists clenched, eyes squeezed shut, his face red, sucking in a huge breath. Get the hell out of my way! He turned to Gilly, smiling. Was that good, Gilly? Better leave the hell part out in front of Trotter, but that was a pretty good start. Really, not bad. Gilly, said Trotter. Look, Trotter, he's got to learn to take care of himself, and I'm the best teacher around. Trotter just went on standing in the doorway as though she couldn't think of what to do next. When the little guy marched over to her, put his fists up in front of her huge stomach, took a deep breath, and said squeakily, "Get out of my way." Tears started in the woman's face. She threw her arms around W.E. and bear hugged him. I was just practicing, Trotter. I didn't mean you. I know, William Ernest, honey. I know. He's got to learn to take care of himself in the world, Trotter. The big woman wiped her face with her apron and sniffled. Don't I know that, baby? She patted the boy and straightened up. How about you finishing this lesson outside? I don't believe it's something I want to listen to. Come on, Gilly. W.E. slid around Trotter and started for the back door. Pow, pow. They could hear him exploding softly down the hall. I'm not going to teach him to pick on people, Gilly said, just how to take care of himself. He can't come hiding behind your skirt every time someone looks at him cross-eyed. I suppose not. Even real mothers can't watch out for kids the rest of their lives, and you're just his foster mother. So they keep telling me. Gilly hadn't meant to be cruel, but she needed to make Trotter understand. If he knows how to read and knows how to stick up for himself, he'll be okay. You got it all figured out, ain't you, Gilly, honey? She relaxed into a smile. Well, I ain't stopping your boxing lessons. I just don't care to watch. Boxing lessons? The woman was a throwback to another century. Gilly started to pass her at the door, but as she brushed by her big body, Trotter grabbed her and planted a wet kiss on her forehead. One hand went up and automatically to wipe the spot, but a look at Trotter's face, and Gilly stopped her arm midway. I don't know what's gotten into me, Trotter mumbled, trying to turn it into a joke. I don't allow no kissing. Sometimes I just haul off and go crazy. At Sunday school, Miss Applegate calls it demon possession. Does she now? Demon possession, is it? She began to laugh so hard Gilly could feel the boards vibrating under her feet. Demon possession? Mercy, girl. I'd have to catch me a jet to keep one step ahead of you. Well, you better get going before the devil grabs me one more time. She waved her hand to land a mock spank on Gilly's bottom, but by the time it swept the air, Gilly's bottom, along with the rest of her, was well down the hall. So, we learned that Gilly is kind of taking W.E. Under her wing and really trying to help him out to make sure that he's going to be okay. And we know that Trotter does not like the swearing, and she probably doesn't much like the fighting, but she understands that William Ernest is going to have to grow up. And we can kind of see Gilly changing, right? We know gruesome Gilly is how we first met her. And now she's turning into this person who is volunteering her time to help out her foster brother, who allowed Trotter to kiss her on the forehead. So this is not the same Gilly that we met when we first started this. Okay, well, that's it for today. I am going to send you a link on Canvas in about 2 minutes, okay? And this link is for a Zoom conference. And I'm sure some of you have heard about that by now. That is where we are all going to get to video chat with each other, because I haven't seen your faces in a long time. So I definitely want to see you guys. So if you go into your Canvas homeroom course, you are going to get a link here in just about 2 minutes. I want you to click on it and we're going to see how this works. Mrs. Cavagnaro's never used it before, so it's going to be new for all of us. So hopefully I will see you in about 2 minutes. Okay, bye.